Hello and welcome to the Briefing Room. I'm your host, Bill Froehlich from WTCM Radio News, and it's our pleasure to welcome you to the program as we talk about some of the things going on across northern Michigan this week. And today is really more of a different type of show than we've done before here. It's not just about the headlines across northern Michigan, but I like to think of it as current events as well. And part of the current events in the media is really what goes on here at UpNorth Media and the Leah Building in Traverse City. So it's my pleasure to welcome the panel today, and to my right, Susan McQuaid from the United Way. Susan, thanks for coming in.
You bet.
An active member of the team and the volunteer staff here to contribute to the programming. And then to my left, Joe Carter and Bob Chauvin, both of you guys who work here at the UpNorth Media Center.
Yep.
So thank you guys both for coming in as well.
Yep.
I want to start with Susan. Let's just kind of go around the table and get a quick biography of each of you. Susan, you've had a lot of airtime here at UpNorth Media, but you've also got a history in the media as well, besides your current job at the United Way, right?
Correct. I started way back when the FCC said you will hire women and minorities. That was the message to the local stations around the country. So I started at TV6 in Marquette. I'm a Youper. And those were the days of film, which was entirely different than what it is today. You worked 6 days a week. You were on call the 7th. You had an old Bolex that you had to wind up, and you prayed that it didn't run out. And I feel like I'm a real dinosaur, but trying desperately now to get into the world of today's technology. It's a very interesting challenge.
A little different.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you did in Marquette, and then I know obviously you also at some point came to Traverse City and worked here as well.
Right. Well, yeah, my family was in Marquette for 4 generations, 5 with my kids. And I worked at TV6 in Marquette from the early 70s until 1990, and then came down here to work at TV7 and 4.
You were in the news in both of those places?
Right. And we did a number of things for the community, public relations, promotions. We did the first Can-a-thon, which was, I think we did 7 tons of food the first time we did it. And that was way back in the 80s, etc. So yes, the majority of my adult life was spent in the world of television. And then I kind of semi-retired. And then there was this nice little job at the Volunteer Center at the United Way of Northwest Michigan that bloomed. And we were asked to start a television show called Volunteer Northwest Michigan, profiling nonprofit agencies in the 5-county area and the volunteers who serve them. So we're very active in trying to promote a video and this station and partner with those nonprofit agencies who are making such a difference in our community.
Well, that's great. So did you dust off the uniform from the TV news days, just itching to get back in TV? You found a new home.
Well, I think you can get hooked, right?
You do.
You really get hooked. But I think what's so interesting is working with the staff here is they bring you into today's world. I still have those old ideas. I know I still have that itch. When there's news, when there's something happening, you're right there. You want to be right there.
Exactly.
But then to be able to work with this staff, to be able to take that, produce it, shoot it, edit it. I'm behind the scenes a lot. I've learned a lot. I'm usually in the room pushing the buttons, which is fine with me. But remembering all of the old news.
All those skills and...
Well, not only the skills, but the whole, the moral ethics of journalism, etc.
Yeah.
And then bringing it forward, and now having this platform. I sound like a broken record, but I'm constantly telling people, you can do this also. And you can be in your seat. And
a lot of what, well, I'll move over and make room for the next person too. A lot of what you do though is, it's topical, it's current, it's the opportunity for United Way and other nonprofits to talk about current needs or current goals and things things of that nature.
It's a great vehicle.
Yeah.
Can't get any better. Everybody loves television. I'm here to talk about all the topical things that people can do.
Well, that's great. And Joe, I know that you and your role here are involved hands-on in quite a bit of that kind of a thing. Tell me your history that led you here to
my short history. I usually call it my elevator speech. My dad gave me a Super 8 camera when I was 12, and ever since then I've been a visual artist, storyteller. I've never not worked in the media. If you consider delivering the Detroit Free Press at 5 in the morning daily, I was in distribution at age 13. And so I've never held a job outside of the media. Prior to taking this position here in Traverse City, I thought I'd worked in all aspects. I'd worked at public television, I worked at commercial television, I worked in corporate video, I worked at nonprofit, worked at the National United Way. Susan and I have talked about that a little bit. I was a consumer of public access TV, but I'd never actually worked at a public access station. So I came up here with the opportunity to enliven this facility, as it was, almost went away here in Traverse City about 5 years ago. And back then, and it still seems like it today, we're flying the aircraft as we build it. Things are constantly changing. We're adding new staff. Bob is an exemplar of that, and it's a busy world. So I've grown up my life doing visual arts, if you will.
I want to come back to you in a second, but Bob, let's jump in too, because I know you've got a history with the concept here of public access in Traverse City, but as Joe indicated, you're a relatively new hire on.
Oh yeah, I'm the new outreach coordinator, and I've been here for a little more than 2 months now, and recently retired from NMC after 27 years there. And the first TV I did there was as we started off doing the live televising the city commission meetings back in, it's about 1985, 86. And so that was kind of the big beginning. Much of the equipment here is actually stuff that came from those original days, the original equipment and all that. And our college had their own television production program at that time. We did some different shows there. Healthline was one of them we did. And unfortunately, that programming, that whole television production program did not last very long. Television is rather expensive, and the cost per student was one of the reasons that went away. But as I tell people, when one door closes, another opens. And basically out of that program basically came public access, which started at the college, eventually moved to Tattle, and then over to here.
To the library there.
That's right, that's right. And my role has always been more of a technical role. I used to always tell people, well, I don't get involved with the content, and now here I am part of the content. So it's a little bit of a twist for me. But just in the short period of time I've been here, I'm amazed of the volunteerism, people helping. The recent event that I worked on with this cherry ball drop, and just the pouring of people helping and what have you. It's just amazing. This is such a great community, and have people rally around stuff like that. So it's really neat. And so I'm enjoying my new role here, and I'm waiting to see where this all goes. So
We're glad to have you.
Thanks, Joe. I'm glad to be here.
The cherry tea is a great example of one of those current event types of things that can be done through UpNorth Media. I know you guys can fill in the blanks better than I can of how many different shows go on through here, how many different people are involved, how many different producers and hosts and what types of shows. But there are a core group of some that do either more current events regularly or some of those spontaneous things that kind of get planned.
Oh, sure. You want to talk about some of those shows, Bob?
Well, sure, yeah. It's like obviously Crosstalk is one where we bring in guests, experts in different areas, and we've done some great shows there. Of course, this room, this program, Briefing Room, and then also Happenings. Happenings is where basically nonprofits get to come in and basically give a 3-minute spiel about what their current events are, what's going on in their nonprofit. And that's staffed by maybe some of the ISD students and volunteers. And we've done everything from Record Eagle spelling bees to you name it, all sorts of different programs like that. So
a lot of the volunteer producers come to us with experience, and at the same time we also have students from, Bob mentioned the ISD program, digital media film production program, and then there are folks who have always thought maybe I could do that, and we empower them. And when we do these larger community-based events, that's when you see people kind of blossom and get the bug, as Susan said. It's as if, you know, in the circus days, people talk about sawdust in your veins. I don't know if it's RF, you know, in people's veins, or digital ones and zeros now in people's veins who want to be involved. But it's a great opportunity to see what you can do and give back to the community. And I think that's one of the reasons we wanted to get United Way involved so early as Leah took over the Operation Public Access, because we saw a growth potential there with all the nonprofits who need to get their stories out, who need to tell people about their works and opportunities to volunteer. So there's many large community-based events aside from the individual producer-based shows. National Writer Series we've been covering since its inception, for people who can't get there, who want to watch it again. That's great content. Susan and I have been working on Film Fest as video volunteers for a number of years now, and a number of our volunteers also volunteer for Film Fest video coverage. We've also done, of course, a charity parade, 4 years running now. Susan has co-hosted that, co-produced that on occasion. So there's these larger community-based events which are they're just wonderful. There's no other way that those events would be covered, if you will, than with volunteers and public access.
I was going to ask you about that, Susan, because I know aside from your regular program on volunteerism, you do get involved in the Writer Series, the Film Festival, the parade, as Joe said. Lots of different things that are topical, timely, and just always something seems to be going on that is also going on here at UpNorth Media.
Well, and I think that's the most exciting thing about utilizing UpNorth Media. There is so much going on in every small community, not just Traverse City. I mean, when you look at the 5-county area, there's something, at least 4 or 5 things going on every single weekend.
Yeah,
and you have young kids, as far as even your kids are concerned. The sporting things, the school. You can be busy all the time.
Right.
And I think that's the message that we want to send out to the audience also. As far as current events, we want to hear about those. And by the way, if you come to one of the classes, you can take one of the cameras out and shoot it. You don't have to be the most proficient person with the technology yet, but you can be passionate about a particular subject.
Right.
A friend of mine, Tina Tank, a really fascinating woman, and I really just met her. And she said to me a few weeks ago, let's do something on 12-12-12, at 12-12 on the corner of 12th and Union. And I thought, how fun is that, right?
Yeah, why not?
And a whole bunch of us came, and the police stopped, wondering what we were doing. I took a camera down, did a couple of interviews. Everybody's banging things. We said yay, and we all went back to our work, right? I mean, it's silly, but it's a current event that was fun. We covered it. And we can't be everywhere. That's why we need the volunteers that are out there, that are watching you right now, to be able to say, well, I could do that.
Do that. Easy enough, right?
Yeah, with the help of the staff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, and the classes.
One of the things that I often mention at my classes, and we have 2 classes. One is a studio producer class where you learn to do what we're doing right here. My counterpart, Joe Torrance, is in the control room now operating the equipment, but we teach you how to do that. And the other class is a field producer class where you can check cameras out. But one of the things I always tell people is it's so easy to do it, and if you can have the idea and have a passion for it, we can help you get to the finish line.
Exactly.
There's no reason why you can't produce a small piece. And we always warn them, don't bite off more than you can chew, but there's so much going on in our region. So many times we get calls or emails. I get emails every day from people, press releases, and can you cover this event, can you cover that event? And it's hard for us to reach out to those volunteers, so it's one of the reasons we got the United Way involved again, is to be able to tap into those resources to get people involved.
Bob, what have you seen in your couple of months here, just in terms of the variety of programs that are out there, or even not even the regular programs, but if there are just those hit or miss things that kind of make air
Sure.
from any different producer? I mean, there's a lot going on.
Well, there's a lot of music shows that's being produced, and what amazes me too is how well the volunteers, it's great to watch them grow and get more confidence and produce better programming, and you can see that, and they love to do that, and the better they get, the more they want to produce. But there's a couple different music shows that we do. What else? As well, we have one coming up here, Picnic at the Opera. That's another big one that we're going to be doing here, and it'll be staffed by some volunteers, volunteer camera operators. That's also being done in cooperation with the audio technology program at the college. So all of these different programs help volunteers and folks grow and get better at the media, and I think that's good. It's good for our community, and as Joe had mentioned, when something comes up and you want to cover something, you know that there's a group of people you can call, and they're more than happy to help. So there's a lot of different things.
One of the things we haven't mentioned, and we've been talking mostly about the public access channel, that's UpNorth, UpNorth TV, but we also operate Government Channel 99, which is your official government meetings for the 5 jurisdictions that fund this operation. And from a media standpoint, we provide content to reporters, literally, who maybe they can't make it to a planning commission meeting. Maybe they're covering another story and want to find out what happened at the city commission meeting. Well, they can go on our website, look at that media, and or call us and get quotes directly off of that streaming media. And so there's another aspect, if you will.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how new that is, because I remember maybe over the past year you telling me about that. You can literally go to the meeting agenda item and click on it, as opposed to sitting through a 3-hour commission meeting.
Right, and that's something
which is a dream for reporters, right? Can you imagine?
I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to say that. You can say it, but yeah.
We have a really wonderful support IT team here at LEA, and it was their challenge, if you will, to make that meeting content more accessible, not only for the general public, but for even other commissioners, other boards, so they can find out what's going on with regards to their own decision making. But reporters do love it. They can literally go to agenda item 2C, chickens in Traverse City, and find out what the latest is about beekeeping or chickens in Traverse City, or what new thing happened at the commission. So it's a real powerful tool, and that's part of the process, is giving people that power.
Yeah, I think that's great for the general public too. If, for example, if we're talking about the Bayfront Improvement Plan, or what's going to happen with the little steam train, I mean, that's something where you could go to, and you can't make it to the meeting, but you want to find out what happened. And maybe, Susan, you can kind of share your perspective on this too. Stuff like a commission meeting or the National Writers Series or the film festival. In the news, we get 30 seconds, maybe on a good day. If it's a big story, a minute and a half.
Exactly.
But you can do the whole half hour. You can hear start to finish the whole presentation on any number of things.
I think that's the beauty of it. Now, as an old media person, of course, we had to be so cognizant of where we were as far as time. Right? 28 minutes and 56 seconds with a 4-second ID, and then the breaks and the commercials and on and on and on. You don't have to worry about that here. And I think that's the beauty. And even if you do have a program similar to yours, you can put in public service announcements, because well, our audience might not know, that public service announcement can go in when it's not sold on the regular television stations, the network television stations. Well, maybe it'll air at 3 o'clock in the morning. But then this is one more thing that we can do here at UpNorth, is to be able to get the word out with those public service announcements. Now, better yet, have kids do them. We worked with Eastern Elementary School. They did public service announcements on bullying. We also sent them to the Meyer statewide video contest, and they won 4 first places. And what, $1,700, is that what I told you, for their school? Wow. I mean, get the kids involved with what they think is relevant. And bullying was a big deal. But I think that when you look at the use of and the timeliness of what LEA and UpNorth Television is doing right now, I think we are on the cutting edge. I really believe that people are finally understanding that they can have a voice. They don't have to pay the big bucks, right? Now, granted, there is a membership fee for nonprofits here. There is not a huge outlay as far as the classes are concerned, and I'm honestly, I'm not just saying this because these guys are here. They will make you feel like you're okay instead of a dummy.
Exactly.
I think that's the biggest fear when volunteers first come in, like, oh, I'm going to make such an idiot of myself.
Feel that way every morning.
Well, part of that for me is I'm not usually in front of the camera. And I'm thinking that right now, Susan. I'm going to make an idiot of myself.
Oh, yeah.
But if I can do this, I can help somebody else do it.
Right.
And I got to tell you, I learned so much from the volunteers who come in to be trained. I get much more back from them that they may not. I don't think they get as much from me. I get a lot more feedback. They teach me things when they come in to take classes and do production. So it's a really great environment to kind of grow. A lot of times in my class, I talk about being an incubator. We are an idea incubator. We're even an economic incubator. If you have a successful vehicle and you can kind of test the waters in public access, well, you could take that same concept, go off and produce it commercially. So there's this opportunity here to kind of put your toe in the water, see what you're passionate about, share that passion with the community, and in doing so, everybody wins. The community gets content, you get experience, and maybe somewhere down the line there is, an opportunity in a monetary kind of payback way for all those volunteer hours, because that's what it is. It's the sweat equity that volunteers put into the content, and without them we wouldn't exist. We can't do our jobs. So they're really important to us.
And the thing that I noticed too right away when I came on board is the hands-on, the personal help people get. When people show up here and they really want to try to do something, they sit down and try to edit something, and it's like, oh my God, it's another piece of software to learn, and I've started, sitting down with folks and teaching them, and they're so appreciative, walking through their program, helping them out. I think that's critical, because people come in and it's like, after they go through the classes, it's like, wow, this is pretty daunting. Oh, no, we're going to help you. Just take it one step at a time. We'll show you how to use the cameras. And as you said, don't try to bite off more than you can chew first off. Just do a little something. Get some successes behind you. And that's one of my purposes here, is to help people do that, to be able to reach out and say, here, come on, we'll help you get started here, And then I sat down with one volunteer and basically got her started. And then I said, okay, I'm going to step back. I'll be back in a half hour. I'm going to get a cup of coffee and let me know what, And so let them, slowly pick it up a little bit at a time. And they want to do that, They want to be able to be a success, So,
one of our other roles is media literacy, and even if you're only taking a class and not sure that you're going to participate, just taking that class and being aware now of how media is produced, how audiences can be directed to a way of thinking or driven to a website or that kind of communication. So just that ability to show people what's behind the door, even as we're doing today, the briefing room is meant to be sort of an inside baseball conversation about the media and how it's produced. And I think that's great. I mean, we often have hosted other community-wide events where we do workshops or we do presentations. One of the biggest attended was a Skype workshop. We did that at the Traverse Area District Library in the McGuire Room. It was standing room only. There were 60-some people there who we just kind of stepped through. Okay, so what is Skype? How does it work? How can I use it? And there were people there from all walks of life, people who'd never used it. There were hardcore users who were looking for tips, and it's that kind of stirring the pot, if you will, in this digital age to enable people to continue to grow. Susan impressed me, I don't know, a couple years ago now, Christmas, you got an iPhone, and suddenly Susan's doing all this swiping stuff, and I'm like, I gotta get me one. I gotta learn to swipe.
Yeah.
I don't know how to swipe and do all that, So it's that kind of opportunity where you can get hands-on and be encouraged to go even further with it.
Getting pretty good at swiping.
Well, and I got a laptop for Christmas. I'm telling you, yeah.
The swiping doesn't work as well on those, though.
Yes, it's
knock it right off the table.
I think the whole idea of current events, the ability to cover them. That's the old term,
Yeah.
the old news term. But the passion to do it and bring it to the public is here. And I don't think there was an outlet before. I think that people didn't understand that sharing and learning about your community and what's happening and what's happening with our environment, with the park, whatever it is, there's an opportunity right here. And believe it or not, it's easier than it sounds. You know, when you say don't bite off more than you can chew, I'd at least say at least nibble something.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Let's just try.
Right.
And in the future, I'm very excited about what's happening because I think that there are people that are getting it. And as a matter of fact, I'll take this opportunity to say I'm going to start a new show myself.
Oh, good.
And it's going to be called Women of a Certain Age. I'm very excited about it. I'm pulling all the pieces together. But it's just that idea. I had the idea that when I passed, a while ago, when I passed 60, it was kind of like, okay, the women of a certain age, well, you know, they're not even on the little checkoff list. You know, it's like 55 and up. It's like, okay, you don't count anymore. But anyway, to have a passion about history, about women's issues, and whatever that passion may be, sit down with someone. You know, get a hold of one of us here and let us help you formulate a program. It can be, not that it's all that easy, but it can be as easy as sitting around a table with a cup of coffee talking about something that you're passionate about. And how can we help you do that? There's 3 cameras, there's 4 microphones. I mean, we can pull it all together.
Right.
So I'm excited about the future and people getting it, more people getting it.
Yeah, and I think they are. In just a few minutes left, let's just go around the table. And Joe, I'll start with you. Of all the shows that you have seen over the years, any favorites, either currently or any standouts in your mind of contribution?
I can tell you a short story. I got a phone call and then a subsequent follow-up email from director of the senior center out of Interlaken. And there was a gentleman there who'd come in to see what activities were available for him. He'd recently lost his wife. And he was kind of a lost soul, if you will. He was looking for an activity to participate in, and there really wasn't anything at that senior center that interested him. And so he walked home, and the volunteer director there was concerned, and so she kind of did a follow-up, called the daughter, talked about, hey, your dad was here and we really couldn't find something for him. Subsequently, had lunch, really worked it out. This is a gentleman who was a Shakespearean instructor, English professor, acted on radio, acted in the early days of television, and suddenly he got the idea to put on a Shakespeare workshop. And Record Eagle picked up the story. It was the most successful thing, and they wanted somebody to cover the video of this. And that he is such a passionate individual. He is a subject matter expert, and this was, as he termed it himself, the professor's last class. And it was the richest content, and we've got one of our producers, Michael Toms, who covered all 4 of the workshops, but then subsequently sat down and did a really nice in-depth one-on-one interview, and we hope that that's going to be shown here probably late January, early February. And it's just a great story, and it's a story that would have gone untold if not for a volunteer producer, somebody who was concerned about it at the senior center perspective, and this gentleman now he's got a reason to participate in his community again.
I think that's a great example, and just judging by what you said, I'm assuming this is the case, but a great example of if you want to get involved, maybe you don't have to have the idea,
right,
but if you're just willing to learn how to be the camera person or be the producer, there are other projects out there that need help.
There's a lot of collaboration that can go on, and we can help each other. And again, these larger events that we do, the Media Center participates in, we always need warm bodies. We need warm bodies.
Bob, how about you? Any favorites that you've seen?
Well, I guess I'm a little thinking of the cherry T-ball drop that I just recently worked on, since I had did that. And what I was amazed about is, again, the community support for that, the volunteers. I had 2 great volunteers that helped me, Mike Matthews and Dolph Swick, and I couldn't have done it without them, and in the time that we were out there, and of course we worked with Michigan News out of Cadillac on that, there was, you're out there in the cold and what have you, and maybe you don't have exactly what you need, and, I'm borrowing from them and they're borrowing from me, and never a crossword. Everybody enjoyed themselves, and that's hard to do. It was a challenging environment, and I hope to do more of that. That was a really, really good event. So.
And you guys went live for that. So,
yes, we did.
How often does that happen, Joe?
Not as often as we wished. In fact, this next event that we're planning for the month of January and February at the Opera House, we'll be going live from the lobby of the Opera House every Tuesday from noon until 1 o'clock. Bring your brown bag lunch and you'll be entertained by Miriam Pico and all sorts of artists and musicians. So we want to do more live, but there are challenges, of course, technically associated with that.
That was exciting to see, because I did flip over on New Year's Eve and said, hey, I know that's local, I know that's live, and I know that's more than the 30 seconds I'm going to see on the news later that night. So that was neat. Susan, let me ask you, favorite shows that you've kind of seen flipping through the dial?
Oh, to pinpoint one is difficult. I think the one that sticks out in my mind right now is one that we did with Mr. Richard Rizzio, who was a Battle of the Bulge survivor. A great gentleman who took time to go into the schools and talk to kids about what it meant to serve his country. I really believe there wasn't a dry eye in the house during that interview. He consequently was the Grand Marshal for the National Cherry Parade, Cherry Festival Parade, etc. But I love the whole idea of veterans history and working on the Veterans History Project. But having said that, I love also, one of my mentors is Bob Pinkham. And Bob has helped me since the beginning with my show. And he literally put television stations on the air. I mean, this man is so full of knowledge, and I think he's in his mid-80s, correct?
Yeah.
Sorry, Bob, if I'm wrong. But anyway, we're close.
54, but
Yeah, but I think that working with the volunteers that have that experience, as well as the shows that we have done, highlighting people and their passions and their personalities, those are my favorites.
Yeah. Well, I'm disappointed no one mentioned the briefing room by name, but I'll get over that. But
it's a good show.
It is a great show.
One of my favorite parts about this is just flipping it on at night when I come home and just seeing what's on, because there's always something different on. There's always something, and we talked about the aspect of a TV station only being able to give you 10 seconds of the writer's series or of the film festival. Well, even when I'm on the scene as a reporter, I can't stay for the whole hour.
Right.
I can stay for 10, 15 minutes, maybe half hour. So if I really like the story that I've been working on as a reporter, hey, guess what? I can actually watch the whole thing as a consumer for the first time. So that's really nice to always find something different that's on the air as well.
And I think what's fun also now is that we're in the TV Guide. The Record Eagle has this new insert that has the listings, where before you really couldn't tell what was on.
What was on when?
You can now.
I was going to ask Joe about that as we kind of go to a close. You had told me that a week or two ago that was kind of coming out in the paper, but also that we're looking at the digital listings as you see the Charter Cable.
I mean, there's a number of challenges, if you will, many masters to serve regarding scheduling and program content. One of our challenges is, with regards to the Record Eagle, they need that data 3 weeks out. And so that puts producers sort of under the gun to be able to predict or give them a deadline for that. But you can always go to our website. The schedule is updated probably at least 3 or 4 times a day. So that latest information is at upnorthmedia.org. And you just click on schedule and you can see what's going on. But we'd look to grow that even more. As you said, we'd like to have Charter Communications include our content in their on-screen program guide, and we're working toward that. The Record Eagle insert has had some mechanical challenges, if you will, from a data aggregate perspective, but it's getting better.
Yeah.
So we never know what show is going to walk in. I mean, we know of people who produce and do their work here, but so many people now can do this at home. I mean, you buy a new laptop and it's got edit software, and you have your phone that has a camera. Suddenly you're producing content, and we don't know that at the Media Center. You walk in and say, here's my show on 12/12/12. Oh, that's great. I'm going to put that on, tonight. So it's always a challenge, if you will, from a scheduling and content perspective. But as you say, when you're surfing the channels, or there's always something interesting on UpNorth TV. Yes. And I would leave it at that. I really think that's key to the local community.
Well, guys, I think we're over time, but as scheduler, I think you'll allow that this week.
I can probably make this work.
So I want to thank Bob Chauvin, Joe Carter, and Susan McQuaid. Thank you guys all for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for tuning into the briefing room. This is usually a show dedicated to what's the news making headlines, but as Joe alluded to, it's also kind of a conversation about what goes into producing the media, and it's been my pleasure to have these guests talking about the media that is produced here at UpNorth Media. So I hope that you will tune in again to the briefing room, or as Joe said, check us out online as well. I'm Bill Froehlich from WTCM News. Have a great week.